welcome back to the channel. What I'm going to do today, well, as the people who subscribe to my channel and those that know, I've just replaced the valves in this. Very low mileage, 6,000 kilometres. A big problem with the exhaust valve. I've had that off. I fitted new valves from Hitchcock, top quality valves, rebuilt all the engine, run it, and it's beautiful. Runs silent, for single air cooled of course, but the rattles are gone. I've also done the rattle down on the oil pump drive chain. It's on a separate video. This runs as quiet as any Enfield I've heard, and I think it's how the factory should have made it anyway. Now, I said I'd do a couple of 100 kilometres, sort of just bedding it in, then I was going to check the valves again. Now, I didn't know actually whether to do, well, for a start I thought, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll do a video on how to check and adjust the valves. Now, there's hundreds and hundreds of videos on YouTube about this. And I thought, no, I'm not going to bother. Bit of a waste of time. When you're doing the job, you can do it in a fraction of the time of wearing a camera and trying to film it. Then I thought, well, I've seen quite a lot of the videos. Now, there's a few things how people do it I don't think was right. There's one thing in particular, and it's maybe not the people's fault who's doing the videos. They're following what the Royal Enfield manual says was about which way you turn the engine, clockwise or anti-clockwise. The engine is anti-clockwise. The manual says turn the engine by hand clockwise, and I've seen on the forums there's big discussion about which is right or wrong way. Well, I've got my own view on it anyway, and I'm going to show you on here, and I'm going to show you why I do it and what I think can happen by turning it the wrong way. So anyway, what I'm going to do, we'll get the seats off, tank off, disc net, whipped all pieces. I'm going to try and do it step by step for you, and depends how good I can get the filming, because I'm still struggling on that a little bit, and we'll see how we get on. Right, I'll put my tea down and we'll get started. Right, first of all you need to remove the seats, so pull the seats off. Next job, there's two tank mounts on here, 2 bolts, 10mm spanner. So we'll remove those next. And just remember, under here there's 2 like metal washers that the rubbers sit on. Don't forget about those. Right, next, this is your fuel pump on your petrol tank. This quick release fuel connector. So we need to remove this next. I put a bit of a cloth there because we'll have a bit of fuel loss, but not much. You just 2 tabs either side, clip them in, push the pipe forward, then pull the pipe back. You do get a bit of fuel out, but I always put a bit of cloth here. It just stops it dripping all over my casings. Right. I took that just out of the way for the time being. Just here, this is the electrical fuel pump connector. There's 2 little clips. Press them in, and that pulls off. Just hook that out of the way. Okay. So, right. next I'm going to let's move the camera over a bit for you. Right, next job is remove the tank. Just lift it up at the rear, slide the tank back. Right. What I do for a start, I just put a piece of wood under the back, because this side of the bike there's the fuel sender plug. Just unclip it. That's unclipped. Right, pull the tank back, lift it up, then underneath down the tunnel there's 2 pipes, overflow pipes. Just pull them off. See the other one? Now you're able to lift the tank away. Put it out of the way somewhere safely. Right, the next thing I'm going to remove will be the spark plug cap. Now, this is your coil. You don't have to remove this, but it's only for sake of 2 bolts. I'll undo this, move this, and just drop it over here out of the way. It's going to give me a lot more room to work just here, so we're not restrained when we do this tappet covers off. So I'll get this removed and move that over there. There we go. Let's pop them back in there so we know where we are. That's given me quite a lot more room to work just here. Now, the fuel pipe, I don't know whether you can see out in there, it's on the little plastic clip. I just undo that and you can push that and it just drops underneath the cam cover there, so it's out of the way. That gives us access to the 4 bolts, 2 bolts on each cover on here. So what I'll do next is take these 2 out. These are 8mm socket size. See, by removing the coil, gives me quite a bit more space to work. It's no big hassle. Lift the cover up. I put these on the bench. Now, I don't know if you can see on the camera, but you can't get these wrong. If you look inside, it actually says EXT, exhaust. Then obviously the other one has inlet written on, so you can't get them wrong. Right, let's take this one off. Not quite so much room under this one, but there's enough. Pull this round a little bit. I don't know if it's going to help you or not. Hard to make a video about undoing a bolt, isn't it? Right, just slide that out of the way. That gives us access to the inlet adjuster on the valve and the exhaust adjuster on the valve. Right, I'll just move round and I'll set the camera up for the other side. I do have to remove the spark plug. I'll do that now. So that enables us to turn the engine over with no compression. Okay, so I'll take that out, then I'll move the camera around the other side. Next job, I need to remove this bung here. Take that out, because then we'll be looking in there to turn the flywheel to get the top dead centre mark lined up. Then we've got to remove these two screws here, take the plate off, and then we'll get access to the crank nut, which will be turning. Right, I'll do that now. Alright, 17mm spanner on that. Screw that off. Just make sure there's a copper washer behind it. Just make sure it stops on the bolt, so you don't lose it. These 5mm. Undo them. Now you can use a ratchet and a socket, but when you've got the crash bars on, there isn't room. So you need to use I use an Allen key with the bobble on the end, so it undoes things that's not in line. Take that out. Out comes the cover. Keep that safe. Alright, I'll get a bit of rag just to... You always get a little bit of oil on the edge of there. Mop that up. Right. Now comes what's the right word to use here? Confrontational? Maybe? Right. If you look at the Himalayan manual, it says turn the engine clockwise. So it's got to go around that way, according to the manual. Now the thing is, the engine runs anti-clockwise, it runs this way. Now the general thumb of rule is you always turn the engine in the direction it runs. Now I think it's a little bit of a design fault on Royal Enfield's behalf here, because in there, that nut is right hand thread. So they've got a right hand thread nut on a left hand running engine. Now the reason they say you've got to turn it clockwise is for extreme case, I suppose, that you could undo the nut. I think that's what their thinking behind it is. But now there's going to be a lot of people that's already set the tappets and done it by what the manual says. Now let me just put a socket on it and I'll show you. Just bear with me. So, I've took the bung out, I've took the cover off. Inside here is the end of the crank, and on the end of the crank there's a 19mm socket nut size. Now Royal Enfield say you must turn the engine clockwise in that direction. Now the engine runs anti-clockwise, this direction. When the engine's running, the crank's going round like this. It's pulling the cam chain from the cam tight on this part, round here like that. Now, on the back of the engine, you've got your cam chain adjuster. Now all it does, the slack's flapping about in the back, it just is a spring on a plunger that pushes on the cam guide that just keeps the tension on the chain. So you could, in theory, if you wished, you could take that out, put your finger in there on the cam guide and just keep enough pressure, because that spring isn't doing any more pressure. It's a spring with a ratchet and paw. It just keeps the tension on the chain. It's nothing strong. In actual fact, what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this out and I'll show you this. Now, that keeps the cam chain tight, the engine spins around, pulls the cam. When they tell you to turn the engine clockwise, obviously then the crank is pulling the chain from this side down like this. Now, it doesn't really go slack there because that's took the tension up anyway. But you're now putting the pressure on to this paw in here, and I'm going to take this out and I'll show you. This is one of the reasons why I won't turn it, or don't want to turn it backwards. Now the nut inside here on the end of this crank, that's torqued up to it's torqued up to 80 Newton meters. Now I'll just turn the engine over. You can, I'll turn this over with my hand. It's that easy to turn over. There's no, I can turn it with my fingers. Just the tension of my fingers. There's nothing at all there. Right? So I don't think myself you would ever get that undone. Now, to give you a comparison, because numbers is numbers, torque, if you don't know Newton meters, what it physically feels like in your hand, I'll show you. Let me just pull this out. Right, now I've already said the nut in here, I think you can just about see it, that there is 80 Newton meters. Right, let's go around the back of the bike. Okay, this back wheel, that nut is what you tighten up to hold the back wheel in place. This is 70 Newton meters. It's 10 Newton meters less than what that crank nut is. Now, this here is the tool that's in your tool roll to undo the wheel. So if you was out and you've got a puncture or the chain wanted adjusting. So if we put that on there, right, let's see if I can, right, now I'm going to try and undo that with this tool, just with my hand, right. As you can see, I'm taking the full weight of the bike, and I can't do that. The way I would undo that is put my foot on it and press it down to undo it. Now, if you're a strong enough person, or if I really wanted, I would undo this, but not without a lot of straining. It's that, well, in actual fact, now, if I press down on that, then I'll get it undone. So, made me right in the face. What I'm getting at, to undo this, is 10 Newton meters less than that crank nut, which I can turn the engine over with my fingers. Now, there's no way I'm ever going to undo that with my fingers. So, what I'm saying is, my point of view is, I think it's quite safe to turn the flywheel over in the correct rotation that the engine runs. Now, what I'm going to do next, like I say, this here, where my fingers is, that's the cam chain tensioner. Now, I'm going to remove this and let you have a look at this. So I'll just switch the camera off while I get it out, and I'll put it on the bench for you. Right, that's your cam chain tensioner. Not much to it. It's not a lot different to a lot of bikes, you know, a lot of Japanese, the same sort of design. But there's something a bit different about this compared to what Japanese models. Right, I'll undo the back, this nut, and take the spring out for a start. That's better. Right, if I take this out, inside here, right, that there, little flimsy spring, that's the spring that pushes the paw out to keep the tension on. Now, to be honest, that, to me, is no better than the spring I've got in this pen. Oh, it's, to have a decent spring in, it would cost pennies, wouldn't it? Right, now, whoops, this here, I think you can just see the teeth on there, and that little bit on the top. Let me get a screwdriver. This piece there, that's the paw for the ratchet. Now that pushes in, and all that does, the spring presses that out as the chain goes slack, and it clicks. You can maybe on the camera just hear it click. But if I pull it all the way out, right, now if this was Japanese, Honda, like my Honda, right, this piece here will be a machined fit to fit inside this bit. So the bit that slides backwards and forwards, that'll be a perfect fit, that would, just in and out. Then all the paw's got to do is sit and drop in these ratchets. Now, instead of being a perfect fit this, what this can do, you can see it from the end. Can you see it? Because, oh, that's better. You can see it better with a move, that look. Right? I could say typical Royal Enfield, sort of, their tolerances are way out to what I think things should be, and this is typical Royal Enfield build, this is. Now, back to the cam chain. Like I said, all this has to do, the cam chain is running this way round past like that, going round in a circle up and down like that. And all this does has to come out, and it pushes on the slipper like that, and it pushes against the cam chain. It just keeps the slack up. So it's doing its job, you know, it's doing its job. Now, Royal Enfield are telling you to turn the engine clockwise when you want to set the tappets. So now you're turning instead of the chain being tight here, it's pulling on this chain, which is pushing this back. It's pushing this thing back. So all the tension of the cam chain and off what the crank's pulling, instead of like this having hardly any pressure, you're trying to force this thing back in there, which it's not designed to do. And what makes it even worse is, if I hold that like that, when that's in the centre, there, that's sitting square on the paw. But if you tip it, I think you can see the paw on the ratchet there is not sat square on the teeth anymore. It's not sat flat. It's like, if that is the ratchet, my fingers are the paw, they sit square like that. When this bit can tip like that, only the outside of this paw is sat in the ratchet. Or if it tips that way, only this side of the paw is sat in the ratchet. Now, nobody's got any idea what's happening to this, whether it's running perfectly flat or it's running tipped, either way. Now you're all of a sudden are trying to force that thing back. In actual fact, if you watch the top of the paw, look, I don't know whether the camera's going to pick this up, but that's moving backwards and forwards, this piece here. Now with the pressure, all it's got to do is slip on here. It's not very easy, this. Slip on the side of this, and you could lose a couple of teeth off here, or take the edge, take the sharp edge off the ratchet paw. So you're none the wiser. You turn your engine backwards, it's slipped a couple of teeth, just took the sharp edge off, so it's not going to grip so good. You set your tappets, put it all back together, turn the engine over, this clicks out. Cam chain's lovely and tight as it should be. Then when you're running, because obviously it's trying to batter this a little bit, this could then slip back because it's not doing its job anymore. It can go like this because the teeth are gone. Till it finds a good tooth to grip, then it stops again. So then your spring pushes it out, and as it comes round again, it slips back again. Now bear in mind, your spring don't look no bigger than a Bic biro, not to me. So really, you're looking, it's a recipe for disaster. Now, I have looked on loads and loads and loads of posts to see if anybody's questioned it, and there has. There's one guy's put a video on, and I think, to be honest, the trolls come on to the YouTube and hammered him, saying you've done that wrong, blah 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 blah. He got that upset about it. He took his video off. But what he did then was he contacted Royal Enfield direct, and according to him, now this is not what I'm saying, that's what he's saying, that Royal Enfield admit it's been put in the manual wrong, and when they turn the engine, they turn it anti-clockwise, which is to me the correct way, the way I turn it, which is the way the engine runs. Now, I don't know whether it's to stop any damage to this or what it was, but by also turning it the wrong direction, your cam timing isn't coming up right for when you set your tappets. It's coming up the wrong side of the lobe on the cam. Right, let's get this out. I didn't really want to go too technical into this, because if you're not interested, it bores the tits off you, doesn't it? Right. Right, put the cam chain tensioners back in now. Now, to me, there's another thing you'll find. I think the nut, what's inside there, that's a bit of a design fault for me. If your engine's running anti-clockwise, that thread on there and nut should be left-hand thread. But like I say, it's tightened up to 80 Newton meters. It's also Loctited on as well, so you know it should be good. Now, I showed you that when I turn this, it's easy, and I don't know if you can listen. There's no noise because that's the way it should go. Now, just for the sake of this film, I'm going to turn this backwards. Now, when you turn it backwards, there's quite a lot of resistance. And the reason that is being, it's going the opposite direction, but it's trying to engage the starter clutch, which, you know, yeah, that's not right. In actual fact, I think, well, maybe the camera will. You might be able to pick it up, the noise it makes. Right, let me just try it. Yeah, I can hear it, but there. Now, that ain't right, is it? That's trying to engage the starter clutch. It's going the wrong way. It's also putting all the pressure on your cam chain tensioner. So, me, like I said at the beginning of the video, what I do on my bike isn't gospel. I've been doing this since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. You always turn the engine in the direction it runs, not against it. So anyway, I'm done with that. I think I'm going to have to edit this little bit down as much as I can, else, well, it'll just be too much. Just be too much. Right. What I've got to do is look inside here. There's a, don't know whether, oh, you might be able to. You can hold the camera and that at the same time. You're right. Now, as I there's a mark on here. There's that little arrow, which is where my finger is. Right. As we turn this round, we should come up with a T mark. Now, the reason I do it with a ratchet and a socket is I know some people do it by sticking it in gear and pulling the wheel round, which actually eliminates your problem of which is the right way, because then it only goes one way, doesn't it? It runs the correct way. I think, yes, there we go. I hope you can see this. Now you can see the line on the case. We turn the engine same direction as the engine runs, and I've lined up the T mark off the crank. So that means we're at top dead centre. Now you have to check that we're on top dead centre on the correct stroke. Right. This way. One way of doing this is, well, the way I do it. If you check the valve, we've got free play there. If you check this one, you can't hear it because this is only a 0.08 gap, but I can feel I've got free play there. What this means, we're on compression stroke. And when we're on compression stroke, top dead centre, then you can adjust your valves. Now, I have checked these was perfect, but I set the exhaust valve on this on 0.20 instead of 0.23. One of the reasons, it obviously been set on 0.23 and it's what knackered the top of the original exhaust valve up, because the gap's so big it just hammered it to pieces. And the other thing is, I've got a tech cam in this. Now the cam lobe on it is a lot steeper than what the standard cam is. And ooh, I can maybe show you on the standard cam. Right, this is the standard cam. You can just about see the lobes. The tech cam is a lot tall. Layman speaking, the tech cam is a lot taller than this. And if you look at this cam, I don't know whether I can get enough light. This side is quite steep, then the other side is more of a gradual climb up. Well, the tech cam being a lot taller, this side is very steep, and what it does, as it drops over, that's what really clatters the valves. So I've shut my valve to 0.20. I know people are going to say, oh, it should be bigger than that, should be bigger than that. It's there for a reason. But I believe the quality of the valves I put in is going to be a lot better. Well, it is a lot better. There's no two ways about it. You know, Royal Enfield put chocolate valves in it. You know, just asking for troubles. Now, you've only got to go on to YouTube or any of the forums, and there's people complaining about them clattering their heads off. You'll see with this engine, when I've finished, I'll fire it up and I'll put my microphone near the engine so you can hear the difference it makes. So anyway, I'm setting that at 0.20. The inlet valve I'm going to set at 0.08, which is standard for them, because I never had no trouble on the back. It was only on the exhaust. But what I've done, I've slacked this one off so I can show you how we set it and the little trick I've got for adjusting them. You can get various tools, or you just try it with a pair of pliers on the top or whatnot, but this is a pretty foolproof system without damaging anything. So what I'm going to do, I'll switch the camera off. I'm just going to fetch the wife to hold the camera in the right place for me so you won't be able to see what I'm doing. And we'll video this a little bit. Right, I've checked my valves already. The exhaust, I actually set my exhaust valve at 0.20, which is smaller than the standard gap. It should be 0.23. But due to I've got a tech cam in it, the cam lobe, the height of it and the ramp off the top is very steep, and it would rattle its head off. Plus long term could do damage to me. So I set it at 0.20. I think it's going to be fine because the better quality valves and the big gap is there just to disperse the heat. So I'll keep a check on it anyway, but I don't want to set it as a huge large gap. The inlet is set at 0.08. That is standard. I've checked mine and it's perfect. But what I've done, I've slacked it off so I can show you how I set the valves and a little trick I've got. Right, just hold. Right, I'm going to set this inlet valve. Now, this is a little tool I've made myself. What this is a piece of like petrol pipe or vacuum pipe. And what I do with this, I drop this over the top of the valve there. Just push it on, and that, when I twist that, that turns the adjuster. Now, I put my feeler gauge in. Should have done this on the exhaust, there's more room. There we go. Then I turn it with the rubber tool I've got. Keep turning it. There. Now as that tightens down on the feeler gauge, the rubber spins on the top of the adjuster. Now what it does this, you're not putting the pressure on the feeler gauge, you're just getting the exact right distance you need without crushing it. Now, okay, yep, torque them up 12 Newton meters. That means you're not leaving it slack or you're not over tightening it. There we go. I can check the front. There. Nice and set. So that's how I set the tappets. Right, I'll put the covers back on now, and I can start putting it together, and we can run it up and see what you think. Okay. Okay. As you can see, tank's all back on. All we've got to do now is connect the fuel line, which is here. Just push that on till it clicks, pull it back. This is the electrical connector for the fuel pump. Clicks in, that's it. Right. That's the fuel pipe connected now, electrical connector on. All we've got to do is fire it up, see what it sounds like. There's the microphone. I can't hear any tapping like a bell, rattle at all. Bottom end. No, it's an air-cooled engine. We're not supporting the water-cooled engine. But I think this is going to be as quiet as it's going to get. I'm really happy with it. All I'm waiting for now is a bit better weather. Sun's out here today, but it's still about -10. Right, so if you enjoyed the video, if you thought it was useful, please subscribe, because I'm trying to get the channel on the up. Click like. Now if you've got any comments, which I think on here there may be a few, leave a comment down below, good or bad, or anything you want to know, and I will answer. Okay, see you in the next video then. Cheers.